Good morning, boys and girls, and welcome back to the southern wing of the Stink Bug Works, where we are actually going to talk about building boats. And as you know, building boats is a thinking man's game. You got to plan this stuff out, because when you get an empty hull, you don't get any instructions. Oh, yes, I'm drinking coffee this morning. I thought you guys would enjoy the sound of a good slurp. Here, let me get you a good slurp. Oh, that was a good slurp. Anyway, here's one of the things I'm thinking about right now. Because of the shape of this hull on the inside and the shape of my motor mount, it actually works best with the motor kind of right here. If you look at the mini dom and the scored, the motors move forward from this point just, maybe half an inch. And what that does, I'm using this clear plastic shaft because this 7mm carbon fiber tube is a real tight fit in this 7mm hole that I reamed in the transom here. I'll talk about that in a minute. And this little piece of plastic's just a shade under 7mm, so it goes in there a little better. The problem is, as I move it back, the motor slides up this step, and it changes the angle. So if I were to push it up here, kind of where the mini dom and the scored have it, I have another issue. And that issue is the motor mount doesn't really fit in the hull. It doesn't touch the hull because the thickness of the water jacket on this motor and the fact that it's a 29mm motor, with this big jacket on it. Now, I suppose I could find a smaller jacket for this thing, but I do like these. Maybe I should do that. Maybe I should look into the water jacket for the stock motor, because the stock motor is 29mm. Maybe I'll do that. Maybe that'll drop down. Otherwise, my plan would be, by moving it forward, it flattens out my strut angle ever so slightly, and I think that's enough to make a difference. What I'll wind up doing is taking a thin piece of cardboard and putting it underneath the motor so the motor's not quite touching the hull, and then I'll build up an epoxy and shredded fiberglass mix and tack the motor mount into place, then pull everything out, and then fill up that whole joint in there between the motor mount and the hull with a milled fiberglass and epoxy mix. So in a sense, it'll still be structurally one piece because it'll be fiberglass to fiberglass to fiberglass. So that's my thinking about that. Now let's get on to a couple other little things. When drilling a hole like this, you want this hole in exactly the right place. And the way I do it is I mark it out, I measure it, and I mark it out in pencil. And then I take an X-Acto knife. And I take the point of the X-Acto knife and I put it on my crossing pencil lines, and I make essentially a center punch. And you can look at it and you can go, oh, it's off a little bit. And with the sharp side of the X-Acto blade on one side and a dull side, you can kind of enlarge your center punch and move it ever so slightly one way or another to where they're just perfect. And you see I've done that with the two little holes for these screws that go into this mounting seal, the shaft seal. And the secret is this hole has to be precise enough that this O-ring has a place to seal against, because this O-ring is going to seal against the hull and against the carbon fiber tube. So this has to be really precisely done. And what I'll do is I'll drill and tap the one hole, put the plate on, snug it down, run my drill in there to make sure that this is right where I want it, and then drill and tap the other hole. The secret is on getting the holes right, and what you really need is a set of reamers. And what I do is I have a tapered reamer. In fact, here it is. I have a tapered reamer that I got from Stu Mac, the guitar people. And this, you can see there's no teeth on one side, and the other side has teeth. And just like you can with the X-Acto knife, you can cut one side of the hole to move it ever so slightly, and then when you have it where you want it, start doing full circles until you get close and you have your hole centered. You can see this thing has a few thousandths play in there. This was just under 7 millimeters. Then I took my regular 7 millimeter, straight fluted reamer and reamed this hole out to 7 millimeters. And this carbon fiber rod is really a tight fit in there. And I'm wondering if Bill Oxydine's rods aren't a little more precise. This is probably 7.00 millimeters, and I'll bet you Bill Oxydine's are 6.99 millimeters, so they can slip in here, because that's just real tight. And I don't want to make that hole any bigger, because I want to make sure this O-ring has a surface to seat on. Let's see. Oh, the blowholes. The blowholes. It's got a flood chamber, and I opened up this flood chamber with the larger brother of this. It's that big. And I put a vent hole right here in this step. Now, here's the way these things work. When they're inverted, they're still a little low in the back because, your CG's here. So it's going to sink a little low in the back. That's why it takes on water in here, and the water going in, the air that's in there has to have a place to go. And the highest point of the boat when it's upside down is where you want it to exit. So ideally, I should have had a big hole right here, but hydrodynamically, that would have been an issue. This will be hydrodynamically invisible to the water. It'll either be out of the water or there'll be water spraying over it, not really getting into it. That's my planning for that. Shark 60 should be plenty. I'm thinking 4S. 4S might be kind of insane, but this motor would do 4S all day long and not breathe hard. So that's a serious thought. I could make this thing stupid fast. It may become undrivable, but it could be stupid fast. Anyway, that's about all I have to say. I have to go look at a piece of property in Lakeside today. Oh boy, Lakeside. Anyway, until next time, boys and girls, jet out.